What if your boss didn't just fire you for saving a life? What if he ordered you to let a baby die first? Not a suggestion. Not a recommendation. A direct order. Stand down or you're fired. James Taylor faced that choice in real time, with a child turning purple in front of him. His act of defiance would cost him everything, and expose a rot so deep it threatened to destroy him before he could fight back. This is the true story of the hotel worker who chose humanity when authority demanded obedience. James Taylor glides between tables in the Silver Oak Hotel's chandeliered dining room like a ghost, present but unseen, essential but invisible. His hands move with practiced precision, refilling wine glasses before they're empty, clearing plates at the exact right moment, anticipating needs before the wealthy diners even form the thoughts. At 42, James has perfected the art of service at this level. He has to. His teenage daughter Maya's college applications sit on their kitchen table at home, each one requiring a deposit he can barely imagine paying. His mother's insulin costs $800 a month. The math is brutal and unforgiving. This job is everything. Manager Andrew Hawkins watches him from across the room, and James feels it like a weight on his shoulders. Hawkins has made the power dynamic crystal clear. James is expendable, easily replaced, expected to be grateful for the opportunity. Stay in your lane, Taylor. It's Hawkins's favorite phrase, delivered with a smile that never reaches his eyes. Tonight is the Diamond Service Dinner, the Silver Oak's most exclusive clientele. Old money, new money, corporate royalty. The guests pay $500 per person, and they expect perfection delivered by invisible hands. When Jennifer and Jackson Marks sweep through the entrance, designer clothes, cold elegance, baby Charlotte in an expensive stroller, James adds them to his mental rotation. Another high-maintenance table. Another performance of invisible excellence. He doesn't know that in less than an hour, Manager Hawkins will physically restrain him and order him to watch their baby die. He doesn't know that his choice to disobey will detonate his carefully constructed life. He doesn't know that the man pointing at him from across the room, the one with power over his family's survival, is about to turn him into a choice. Obedience or humanity. But he's about to find out. Before we dive into the story, if you're finding this compelling so far, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. These are real stories about real people facing impossible choices, and your support helps me bring more of them to you. Also, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone facing injustice at work, someone who's afraid to speak up, or someone who just needs to be reminded that courage can change systems, share this video with them. Alright, let's get back to James Taylor and the night that would change his life forever. James Taylor learned long ago that excellence in his profession means becoming invisible at exactly the right moments. At 42, he's mastered the choreography of high-end service, reading a guest's posture to know when they want attention versus when they want to be left alone, remembering that Mrs. Chun prefers her water room temperature, while Mr. Bradford needs his wine glass filled to exactly halfway. Tonight, as crystal chandeliers cast soft light across the Silver Oak's main dining room, James moves through his section like water finding its path, fluid and inevitable. The Diamond Service Dinner happens 4 times a year, and each one feels like walking a tightrope over a pit. The guests dropping $500 per person aren't just wealthy. They're the kind of people who appear in business magazines, whose names open doors, whose displeasure can end careers. James balances 3 plates along his left arm, while his right hand retrieves a dropped napkin for table 7 before the elderly woman even notices she's dropped it. She doesn't thank him. She doesn't see him. That's the point. At home, Maya's college applications create a neat stack on their cramped kitchen table. His daughter wants to be a doctor, talks about Johns Hopkins and Duke with the kind of hunger that breaks his heart and fills it simultaneously. Each application requires deposits, fees, visits, money they don't have. His mother's insulin prescription refill notice sits beside Maya's paperwork, $800 due by the end of the month. James does the math constantly, obsessively. Base salary plus average tips minus rent minus utilities minus groceries minus medication equals barely enough. Barely. One bad month, one injury, one mistake, and the whole fragile structure collapses. Taylor, manager Andrew Hawkins, appears at his elbow, and James feels his shoulders tense involuntarily. Hawkins has a particular way of saying his last name. Not quite hostile, but stripped of warmth. A reminder that James is staff, replaceable, beneath notice except when there's criticism to deliver. You're covering Section 3 tonight. The Morrison Party, the venture capital group, and we have late additions, the Marx family. Yes, sir. I'll take care of them. See that you do. Hawkins steps closer, lowering his voice. Tonight needs to be flawless, Taylor. These guests expect a certain atmosphere. You understand what I'm saying? Stay in your lane. Don't overstep. Remember your place. The words land like small cuts. James has heard variations of this speech from Hawkins for 3 years now, each reminder a careful assertion of the hierarchy. He wants to speak, to push back against the casual disrespect, but Maya's college dreams and his mother's medication form a weight that keeps his mouth shut. I understand, Mr. Hawkins. Good. Because there are plenty of people who'd love to have your position here. Hawkins's smile doesn't touch his eyes. One mistake tonight, and we'll see about making a change. James nods, swallowing his dignity along with his anger. He cannot afford to lose this job. He cannot afford pride. So he straightens his tie, checks his section one more time, and prepares to be invisible for people who will never know his name. What he doesn't know is that in less than an hour, staying in his lane will become impossible. The choice between obedience and conscience will arrive with a choking baby and a direct order that will force him to decide who he really is. The Marx family arrives like a weather system. You feel the change in atmospheric pressure before you see them. Jennifer Marx enters first, her designer heels clicking against marble with the confidence of someone who's never questioned whether she belongs anywhere. Her husband Jackson follows, phone pressed to his ear, waving off the maitre d's greeting without breaking his conversation. Behind them, a young nanny struggles with an expensive stroller, a diaper bag sliding off her shoulder, baby Charlotte beginning to fuss in that pre-cry way that every parent recognizes. James watches them get seated in his section and catalogs what he needs to know. High maintenance, accustomed to deference, the kind of guests who tip well if you're invisible and poorly if you're noticed. He approaches with menus, his professional smile perfectly calibrated. Good evening, and welcome to the Silver Oak. My name is James and I'll be... Champagne, Jackson interrupts, not looking up from his phone. Your best bottle. And bring some appetizers. Whatever's good. Jennifer still hasn't acknowledged James's existence. Her own phone commanding her complete attention. Manicured fingers scrolling rapidly. The nanny lifts Charlotte from the stroller, and the baby's fussing escalates into genuine crying. Jennifer's head snaps up, irritation flashing across her perfectly made-up face. Oh my God, really? Right now? She doesn't direct this at anyone in particular, just releases it into the air like pollution. Then to the nanny, keep her quiet. We have important people watching. The young woman, she can't be more than 22, takes Charlotte with trembling hands, bouncing her gently while trying to stay out of the way as James sets water glasses on the table. He catches her eye for just a moment and sees exhaustion there, anxiety, the particular fear of someone whose job security depends on controlling something inherently uncontrollable. He gives her a small nod, the kind of gesture that means I see you, I understand, you're doing fine. She returns it with something that might be gratitude. James delivers the champagne with practiced efficiency, pours it without flourish, sets down the appetizer selections he knows Hawkins will approve of. Jackson snaps his fingers twice, actually snaps them when his glass needs refilling. Jennifer speaks over James when he tries to explain the evening specials, waving him away mid-sentence. He moves like water around their rudeness, accommodating every unspoken demand, reading their needs in their body language because they certainly won't articulate them with words. Across the dining room, Andrew Hawkins watches. James feels that gaze like a physical thing, constantly evaluating, waiting for the mistake that will justify whatever consequence he's been wanting to deliver. James has learned to work under that scrutiny, to perform perfectly while being silently measured. He refills water glasses before they're empty, clears plates at precisely the right moment, anticipates the Mark's needs before they form them. Charlotte fusses periodically throughout the dinner, and each time Jennifer's expression tightens with annoyance. The nanny produces toys, a bottle, soft words, whatever might soothe her. James brings a small bowl of bread pieces without being asked. Sometimes babies like to hold food. It keeps them occupied. The nanny accepts it with another grateful look. What none of them know is that one of those bread pieces will soon become a death sentence, and James will have to choose between following orders and saving a life. It happens in the space between one breath and the next. James is clearing table 5 when peripheral vision catches wrong movement at the Mark's table. Charlotte's tiny body goes rigid in the nanny's arms, her face shifting from pink to red to a darker, terrible shade. Her mouth opens and closes silently, no cry emerging, little hands flailing in that primal panic of airway obstruction. The nanny's eyes go wide with horror, frozen in that awful moment of recognizing crisis without knowing how to fix it. James's first aid training, taken when Maya was born, refreshed every 2 years, kicks in with crystal clarity. Choking infant, airway blocked, seconds matter. He sets his tray down and moves toward the table. Andrew Hawkins materializes beside him, fingers clamping around James's bicep like a vice. Taylor, stand down. Sir, the baby's choking. I said stand down. Hawkins's voice drops to a hiss, his grip tightening. Security handles medical emergencies. You stay in your lane. That's an order. One more step toward that table and you're done here. Do you understand me? Time fractures into crystalline shards. James looks at Hawkins's face, sees the cold certainty there, the assertion of authority that will not bend. Then he looks at Charlotte, whose face is transitioning from red to purple, that terrible color that means oxygen deprivation, brain damage, death. The nanny is shaking, paralyzed. Jennifer and Jackson remain deep in their conversation about quarterly projections, oblivious to their daughter dying 3 feet away. James's mind performs brutal calculations at superhuman speed. If he obeys, job retained, health insurance continues, Maya's college fund survives, mother's insulin stays affordable, dignity swallowed but family fed. If he defies, immediate termination, financial devastation, everything they've barely held together collapses. Maya's dreams deferred. Mother's medication becomes impossible. But Charlotte is dying. Right now. This second. Security hasn't even been called. Hawkins hasn't reached for his radio, hasn't alerted anyone. The order to stand down isn't about protocol. It's about power. About keeping James in his place even if it costs a child's life. Other staff members watch from safe distances. They've heard Hawkins's command. No one moves. The restaurant's ambient noise, conversation, silverware, soft music, continues obliviously while an infant suffocates in silent desperation. James feels the weight of every choice that's brought him to this moment. Every time he swallowed an insult, accepted disrespect, stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every calculation that prioritized survival over dignity. His entire life has been a negotiation between what's right and what's safe, and he's always chosen safe because he had to, because people depended on him, because the world doesn't reward black men who challenge authority. Charlotte's lips are turning blue. The math is simple and terrible. His family's security versus this baby's life. His obedience versus her oxygen. Everything he's built versus everything he believes. Time collapses back into motion. James looks at Hawkins one more time, sees the threat there, understands exactly what defiance will cost. Then he looks at Charlotte, sees death approaching in real time, and understands with perfect clarity what obedience will cost his soul. He rips his arm free from Hawkins's grip and sprints toward the table. The baby's choking. James's shout cuts through the dining room's elegant murmur like a knife. Jennifer and Jackson's heads snap up from their phones, and James watches comprehension dawn on their faces. First confusion, then horror as they see their daughter's purple face. James lifts Charlotte from the nanny's trembling arms with the certainty of training overriding panic. He positions her face down along his forearm, her head lower than her chest, supporting her jaw with his hand. 5 sharp back blows between her tiny shoulder blades, heel of his palm delivering controlled force. Nothing dislodges. Charlotte's body remains rigid, airway blocked, silence more terrifying than any scream. The dining room has gone quiet, 100 pairs of eyes watching. James flips Charlotte face up along his other forearm, finds the correct position on her sternum. 2 fingers, just below the nipple line. First chest thrust. Second. Nothing. Jennifer is standing now, hands over her mouth, making sounds that aren't quite words. Third thrust. A piece of bread shoots from Charlotte's mouth, arcing through the air. The baby's chest expands with a massive, gasping breath, and then she wails. That piercing infant cry that means air moving, lungs working, life continuing. The sound is the most beautiful thing James has ever heard. He places Charlotte in Jennifer's outstretched arms. She clutches her daughter to her chest, sobbing openly, checking her over with shaking hands. Jackson grabs James's hand in both of his, squeezing hard. You saved her life. Oh God, you saved our baby's life. Thank you, thank you. The restaurant erupts in applause, guests rising from their seats. But James barely hears it. He's watching Andrew Hawkins cut through the crowd, and the expression on the manager's face turns James's blood to ice. Hawkins doesn't pull him aside, doesn't wait for privacy. He stops 3 feet from James and speaks loud enough for everyone to hear, his voice vibrating with rage. You were given a direct order to stand down, Taylor. He points at James like an accusation. You disobeyed. You're fired for insubordination. Collect your things and leave this property immediately. The applause dies like a candle in wind. Stunned silence replaces it. You're firing him? Jennifer's voice breaks with disbelief, Charlotte still wailing in her arms. He just saved our daughter's life. This is an internal matter. Hawkins's voice could freeze fire. Mr. Taylor violated clear protocols and direct managerial orders. His employment is terminated effective immediately. Jackson stands, his face flushing red. This is insane. The man's a hero. You ordered him not to help a dying baby? I don't owe you an explanation of our internal policies. Hawkins doesn't even look at Jackson. His eyes locked on James. Taylor, leave. Now. James feels the humiliation wash over him like acid. Every eye in the restaurant watching his destruction, witnessing his powerlessness. He learned long ago that arguing with authority is pointless, especially for someone who looks like him. The system isn't designed for him to win these confrontations. He nods once. Yes, sir. Jackson fumbles in his pocket, thrusts a business card into James's hand. Call me, please. We'll fix this. But James knows better than to believe in fixes. He's just lost everything. The job, the insurance, Maya's college fund, his mother's medication, all of it gone because he chose to save a life instead of following in order to let a baby die. He walks toward the kitchen to collect his belongings, his back straight despite the weight of catastrophe crushing down on him. Behind him, he hears the Marks family arguing with Hawkins, hears other guests joining in, but their voices fade as he pushes through the service door. In his pocket, Jackson's business card feels like a lie. People like the Marks don't fix things for people like him. That's not how the world works. James changes out of his uniform for the last time and tries to figure out how to tell his daughter her college dreams just died because her father couldn't watch a baby suffocate. The city streets blur past James as he walks, his feet carrying him home on autopilot while his mind spirals through calculations that all end in disaster. His phone vibrates in his pocket, Maya's ringtone, the one she programmed herself. He pulls it out, sees her smiling face on the screen, and his thumb hovers over the answer button before he lets it go to voicemail. He can't. Not yet. Not while his voice would crack and betray the catastrophe before he's ready to explain it. The financial math plays out with brutal clarity. 2 months of savings, maybe. His mother's insulin is $800 monthly. Unemployment benefits won't even cover that, let alone rent, utilities, food. Maya's college deposit for early decision is due in 3 months. 3 months. He just destroyed 3 years of careful saving, of extra shifts, of saying no to Maya when she asked for new shoes because they had to build that fund, protect that future. He made the right choice. He knows that with absolute certainty. Charlotte's alive because he defied orders, because he chose humanity over obedience. But knowing you made the right choice doesn't pay for insulin, doesn't feed your family, doesn't send your brilliant daughter to medical school. By the time James reaches their apartment building, 3 flights up, water-stained ceiling in the hallway, the despair has alchemized into rage. Rage at Hawkins for creating that impossible choice, for weaponizing protocol, for valuing atmosphere over a child's life. Rage at a system where doing the right thing equals punishment, where saving a baby means destroying your family's stability. Rage at himself for those precious seconds he hesitated while Charlotte's face turned purple. Seconds where he calculated survival versus morality like they were equally weighted options. He unlocks the apartment door and Maya's there immediately, backpack still on, practically bouncing with excitement. "Dad, you're home early. Guess what? Mrs. Chun says my essay for Hopkins is the best she's ever read, and I got an A on my calculus exam, and..." She stops, really seeing him for the first time. "Dad? What's wrong?" James pulls her into a hug, holding on longer than usual, feeling her tense with worry. When he releases her, he tells her everything. The choking baby, Hawkins's order, the choice, the firing. He watches his words land on her like physical blows, watches her 17-year-old face try to process her father's employment destruction. Maya's eyes fill with tears, and James's heart fractures completely. He's failed her, failed to protect the future she deserves. But when she speaks, her voice is fierce. "Dad, you saved a baby's life." The tears spill over, but she's not crying from disappointment. That matters more than anything. More than college, more than money, more than... Her voice breaks. "I'm so proud of you. Do you understand? I'm so proud." James pulls her close again as they both cry, and something inside him that cracked when Hawkins fired him begins to knit back together differently. Maya's pride doesn't pay bills or buy insulin, but it reminds him that he raised a daughter who understands that some choices transcend cost-benefit analysis. That human life isn't negotiable, even when the price is everything you have. His phone buzzes again. A voicemail from Maya, left before she got home. He'll listen to it later, that artifact from before she knew, when her biggest worry was a calculus exam. For now, he holds his daughter and tries to figure out how they'll survive the consequences of him being a good man in a system designed to punish goodness. Jennifer Marks walks through the Silver Oaks lobby at 9 a.m. with Charlotte strapped to her chest in a carrier, Jackson beside her, and the kind of determined fury that comes from a sleepless night spent replaying your daughter's near death. The receptionist's practiced smile falters when Jennifer speaks. "We need to see Jason Martin, the owner, right now. I'm afraid Mr. Martin doesn't take walk-in appointments. Tell him the Marks family is here about an employee who was fired last night for saving our daughter's life after your manager ordered him to let her die." Jennifer's voice carries across the lobby. "Tell him if he doesn't see us in the next 5 minutes, our lawyers will be here in 10. Jason Martin agrees to meet them. He's a stern man in his mid-60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, who's built the Silver Oaks reputation on excellence and integrity. He listens as the Marks lay out the previous night's events with controlled precision. The choking, Hawkins's direct order to stand down, James's defiance, the immediate termination. Martin's expression darkens with each detail, the kind of anger that comes from discovering rot in something you've built. "Show me the footage," he says to his security chief, "and get me James Taylor's personnel file. Now." Over the next 3 hours, Martin conducts an investigation with the thoroughness of a prosecutor building a case. The security footage is damning in its clarity. Hawkins physically restraining James, his mouth moving with words the audio captures perfectly. "Stand down. That's an order. One more step and you're done here." Charlotte's face purple in the background. James's visible anguish before he breaks free. The save. The firing delivered in front of the entire dining room like a public execution. Martin calls in staff members one by one. A young waitress speaks carefully at first, then with growing confidence. Mr. Hawkins always treated James differently. Harsher criticism for smaller mistakes. Watched him constantly. "James is the best server we have," but Hawkins would find fault with things he'd let other people slide on. "A busboy, nervous but resolute. Hawkins told me I should be grateful for the opportunity. When I tried to report that he gave me extra cleanup work as punishment for speaking Spanish with a guest. He said some people think they deserve special treatment. A senior server, who's worked at the Silver Oak for 12 years. The racism is subtle, but it's constant. Black employees get held to impossible standards. We've lost good people because of Hawkins's management style, but they never complain formally because they know it'll just make things worse. The pattern emerges like a photograph in developing solution, undeniable, damning, systemic. Martin pulls James Taylor's file last. 5 years of employment. Guest commendation letters praising his professionalism and warmth. Multiple Employee of the Month awards. Quarterly reviews that are flawless until Hawkins became his direct manager. When suddenly James starts receiving criticism for minor infractions. Uniform not perfectly pressed. Took extended break without permission. Refuted by timestamp records. Attitude concerns. Never specified. Martin closes the file and sits in silence for a long moment. Then he reaches for his phone. "Get Andrew Hawkins to my office. Immediately." He looks at the Marks family, who've waited through the entire investigation. "And someone find James Taylor's contact information. I need to speak with him." The picture is brutally clear. This wasn't about protocols or insubordination. It was about a manager who abused his power to maintain control through fear, who targeted employees he saw as beneath him, and who valued authority over human life. And James Taylor, excellent employee and decent human being, became the example, the warning to anyone else who might dare to step out of their assigned place. Martin's jaw tightens. He's going to fix this. But he knows that what's been broken here goes deeper than one firing, and fixing it will require more than just making one man whole. Andrew Hawkins enters Jason Martin's office with the confidence of a man expecting vindication. He's prepared his defense, protocol violations, chain of command, the importance of maintaining order in a high-end establishment. He's even rehearsed the phrase difficult personnel decision for when Martin asks about the optics. Martin doesn't ask him to sit. You ordered an employee not to save a dying child. It's not a question. Hawkins's prepared speech evaporates. I was maintaining order, following established protocols for medical emergencies. You gave a direct order to let a baby die to preserve the atmosphere. Martin's voice could cut glass. Then you fired the man who saved her life, in front of the entire dining room, like a public execution. Mr. Martin, if you'll let me explain the context. I've reviewed the footage, Andrew. All of it. I've interviewed the staff. Multiple staff members. Martin opens a folder on his desk. This isn't about protocols. This is about your need for control and your bias against James Taylor specifically and black employees generally. Hawkins feels the ground shifting beneath him. That's not true. I treat all employees equally. Do you? Martin slides photographs across the desk, printed frames from security footage. Here you are physically restraining James while a baby chokes. Here's your mouth forming the words, stand down. Here's James breaking free. Here's you firing him 30 seconds after he saved a child's life. Martin's eyes are ice. I've got 12 staff members describing a pattern of discriminatory treatment. Harsher standards for black employees. Constant surveillance. Criticism for infractions you ignore in others. I've got documentation showing James Taylor is one of our highest-rated servers with the most guest commendations, yet somehow his reviews declined the moment you became his manager. I have high standards. You have bias. Martin stands and Hawkins instinctively takes a step back. You created a hostile work environment. You abused your authority. And when an employee defied you to save a human life, you retaliated publicly to reassert dominance. That's not management, Andrew. That's cruelty disguised as protocol. Hawkins's denials sound hollow even to himself. The evidence is overwhelming, undeniable. He watches his career crumbling in real time. Here's what's going to happen. Martin continues, his voice flat with finality. You're demoted to floor supervisor effective immediately. 6 months probation. You'll undergo mandatory management training and sensitivity education, real education, not checking boxes. You'll be monitored, evaluated. And if I see one hint of retaliation, one whisper of discrimination, one example of abusing whatever authority you have left, you're terminated. Am I absolutely clear? Hawkins nods, humiliation burning through him like acid. Yes, sir. Get out. After Hawkins leaves, Martin sits in silence for a moment, then picks up his phone and dials the number from James Taylor's file. It rings 4 times before a cautious voice answers. Mr. Taylor, this is Jason Martin. I own the Silver Oak Hotel. He takes a breath. I owe you an unreserved apology. What happened to you was unconscionable. I've spent the morning investigating, and I've taken action against Andrew Hawkins. But that's not enough. Martin glances at the personnel file, at years of exemplary service. I want to offer you your position back. Not as a server, but as senior floor manager. Significant raise. Full benefits restoration. And most importantly, an active role in reforming our policies and culture. We need your voice, Mr. Taylor. We need your integrity. The Silver Oak needs to be better, and I want you to help make that happen. Silence on the line. Then James's voice, careful and guarded. Mr. Martin, I appreciate the call, but I need time to think about this. Of course, take all the time you need. But know this, you did nothing wrong. You saved a life. That should have been celebrated, not punished. I hope you'll give me the chance to make this right. After they hang up, Martin sits back in his chair and stares at the evidence spread across his desk. One good man nearly destroyed for doing the right thing. How many others has he failed to see? How much rot has he missed while focused on maintaining the Silver Oak's pristine surface? The work of fixing this, he realizes, is going to be longer and harder than one phone call, one demotion, one apology. But it starts here with accountability, and with hoping that James Taylor has enough faith left to give them a chance to earn his trust back. James sits at their small kitchen table with Maya and his mother, Martin's offer hanging in the air between them like something fragile and dangerous. His mother clutches his hand, her eyes bright with relief. James, this is an answer to prayer. Your job back, a promotion, more money. It's more than we hoped for, Maya adds, though she's watching her father's face carefully. Right, Dad? James stares at the business card Jason Martin gave him over the phone. Embossed, heavy stock, the kind of card that announces importance. Can I go back there? He asks quietly. To a place that humiliated me in front of 100 people? Where I was told to let a baby die and then punished for refusing. But they're trying to make it right, his mother says. They fired that awful man. Demoted, not fired. James's voice is flat. And what happens in 6 months when everyone forgets why this mattered? What happens to the next person who defies an unjust order? Maya squeezes his other hand. Then make sure they can't forget, Dad. You said Martin wants you to help reform policies. So reform them. Make it so what happened to you can't happen to anyone else. Her words settle something in James. That night he calls Martin back. I have conditions, James says without preamble. 4 of them. Non-negotiable. I'm listening. 1. Andrew Hawkins's demotion must be explained publicly to the staff. Everyone needs to know why it happened. No vague, restructuring language. James's voice is steady. 2. The hotel creates formal worker protection policies. Clear, written protocols that protect employees who take ethical action, even if it contradicts a direct order. No one should face what I faced. Agreed, Martin says immediately. 3. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for all management. Real training, not a box-checking exercise. And a transparent reporting system for bias complaints with third-party oversight. James takes a breath. 4. I want actual decision-making authority in implementing these changes. Not advisory. Not consultant. Authority. There's a pause. Then Martin's voice comes back firm. Agreed. All of it. James, we need your voice to fix what's broken here. When can you start? James's first day back is surreal. He walks through the Silver Oaks employee entrance in a new suit. Senior floor manager, the title still strange in his mouth, and staff members stop mid-task to stare. Then they start approaching. The young waitress who testified about Hawkins's treatment grips his hand. Thank you for coming back. You don't know what this means. A busboy pulls him aside, voice low. Hawkins told me I should go back where I came from when I asked for time off for Ramadan. I never reported it because I thought no one would care. A veteran server tears up. I watched them destroy you for doing the right thing. I almost quit. But you came back. That means something. James realizes with dawning clarity that he's not just returning to a job. He's becoming a catalyst for change that's been needed for years. Over the following weeks, James works 16-hour days with Martin and HR, dismantling and rebuilding the Silver Oaks culture from the foundation up. They draft worker protection policies with teeth, clear protocols for ethical action, whistleblower protections, mandatory investigation timelines. They establish an anonymous reporting system with third-party oversight, making bias complaints go directly to the board, bypassing management entirely. They implement quarterly reviews of management practices, with staff input weighted equally to supervisor assessments. The mandatory training is comprehensive and uncomfortable. Some longtime managers resist openly, complaining about political correctness and walking on eggshells. Martin's response is unwavering. Adapt or leave. This is the standard now. 2 managers choose to leave. James doesn't mourn them. Slowly, deliberately, the silver oak transforms. Staff members walk taller. Complaints decrease. Guest satisfaction scores rise. Turns out happy employees create better experiences. And James, who once believed survival meant silent obedience, learns that real change requires the courage to demand dignity, the persistence to enforce accountability, and the vision to build something better from the ashes of what was broken. 6 months after James Taylor was fired for saving a life, the Silver Oak Hotel operates with a rhythm that feels fundamentally different. Staff members move through the dining room with confidence rather than fear, their excellence born from respect instead of terror. The anonymous reporting system has logged 23 complaints in its first quarter. Issues that previously festered in silence now brought into daylight where they can be addressed. Guest satisfaction scores have climbed to the highest in the hotel's history. Turns out people can sense when the staff serving them are treated with dignity, and they respond to that authenticity. James stands near the kitchen entrance during the dinner service, watching his team work. A guest at table 7 starts coughing violently, face reddening. Without hesitation, a young server named Marcus moves toward the table, calling for assistance. No one stops him. No one orders him to stand down. He helps the guest with water, asks the right questions, and the situation resolves in seconds. This is what the new protocols look like in practice. Staff empowered to act on their training and conscience without fear of punishment for caring. James. The voice behind him is quiet, hesitant. Andrew Hawkins stands there in his floor supervisor uniform, his previous arrogance completely absent. 6 months of probation, training, and accountability have carved something different into his face. "Can I speak with you?" They step into a quiet corridor. Hawkins's hands shake slightly as he speaks. "I owe you an apology. Not a professional one, I've said that already. A human one." He meets James's eyes with visible effort. "I abused my power. I let my biases control me. I created an environment where people were afraid to do the right thing because I valued control over everything else, including human life." His voice cracks. "I'm ashamed of what I did. And I'm grateful you're still here to help make this place better than I ever let it be." James studies him for a long moment, searching for performance versus genuine remorse. He sees the latter, the painful kind of self-awareness that comes from having your ugliest parts exposed and being forced to confront them. "I appreciate that, Andrew," James says finally. "Earn it through your actions." Hawkins nods and walks away, and James feels something he didn't expect. Hope that people can actually change when systems demand it. That evening, the Marks family returns for dinner. Charlotte, now 18 months old, thriving and giggling, toddles ahead of her parents on unsteady legs. Jennifer sees James and immediately embraces him, tears in her eyes. "We've told everyone about you and what you did. Not just saving Charlotte, but transforming this entire place. You changed everything, James." Jackson shakes his hand firmly. "We came back because we wanted Charlotte to grow up knowing who you are. The man who chose courage when it cost everything." As they're seated, James surveys the dining room with different eyes than he had 6 months ago. He sees staff of all backgrounds working with dignity, their excellence celebrated rather than taken for granted. He sees guests receiving genuine hospitality rather than fearful performance. He sees a culture of respect replacing the old hierarchy of terror. He thinks about that moment when Hawkins ordered him to stand down, when obedience and humanity stood in brutal opposition and he had to choose. He chose right, and it cost him everything temporarily. But in rebuilding from that destruction, he created something better than what he lost. He proved that defying unjust authority, even at devastating personal cost, is how real change begins. Maya texts him, "Proud of you, Dad. Always." James smiles and returns to work, not as invisible staff, but as a leader who demonstrated that courage matters more than compliance, that human dignity cannot be commanded to stand down, and that sometimes the greatest act of service is refusing to serve injustice. The silver oak is better because he chose to be human when authority demanded he be obedient. And that, James realizes, is worth everything it cost.